Today is Christmas, the long-awaited solemnity, the long-awaited time when God enters into the history of humanity. Sometimes the meaning of Christmas is always clouded in the preparation, the decorations, the buying, the sending of gifts, even sometimes in the gathering of family and friends, that we tend to forget what actually we celebrate. But the true meaning of Christmas can never be lost. It means the incarnation of the Son of God. Bluntly put, it means that God becomes man. He becomes what he was not, yet without losing what he was. He takes our nature, he assumes our nature. He becomes one like us in our vulnerability, in our frailty. And the reason of this is that he may take us to what he is. He becomes man that we may become like God. He becomes what we are that we may become what he is. The enormity of what we celebrate today is such that the prophets prepared for this day. They desired it, they longed for it. And eventually, centuries after the prophecies were made, John the Baptist prepared for him. The people of Israel looked forward to him. And he came. He became man. The mystery we celebrate is such that those who were alive the day or the time this happened is not more privileged than those of us that commemorate that mystery. Mystery is such that even centuries to come, generations to come, you still get and gather all the benefits that is involved and that is distributed, that is shared from that mystery. So those of us that celebrate Christmas today, we are as good, as privileged as those that celebrated about 2,000 years ago. God fully becomes man, that man may be divinized. That is what Christmas is for us. The gospel of today, from the prologue of John, gives us a hint to this mystery we celebrate. And prominent about this are two things. First, his pre-existence. His existing before the foundation of the world. And then his existence in time when he took flesh in the womb of the Blessed Virgin Mary and he was born. John begins his prologue with these words. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. In the beginning. This takes us to the foundation of all things, to the beginning of the book of Genesis. In the beginning, his pre-existence. Jesus was there, the second person of the Trinity was there, God was there. And again, John eventually tells us, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. God dwelling in the midst of his people. God living with his people. God residing in the hearts and the lives, in the society as his people. He's not separated from them. The church fathers will call this a wonderful exchange. That God exchanges himself and becomes like us. And the joy that this brings is such that it cannot be contained. We cannot contain it within ourselves. It must be shared. It is for our salvation. St. Paul tells us that this is the revelation of God. What God is. Everything. He is the image of the invisible God. The visible reality of the invisible God. God reveals himself in a different way in what we celebrate today. In that child born in a stable and placed on a manger. The second reading from the letter to the Hebrews tells us, in ancient times, God spoke to our ancestors in varied ways, but in our own time, he has spoken to us in his Son. Jesus, the Word, spoken in love, spoken out of love. The same Word that created at the beginning of all things. When through God's Word, he created humanity, he created the universe, he created everything. The same Word is what has been given to us and continues to create in the act of redemption, which is the purpose for his incarnation. St. John of the Cross will tell us that God has spoken his final word in his Son Jesus Christ, and that anyone who is expecting any other kind of revelation is actually wasting his time. Because all God has to make known to us, he has made known in his Son. In fact, he said, if he has something greater than his Son, he would have given us. But this is the final giving, the most eminent of all givings, that he gave his Son, he gave himself. God became like us, that we may become like him. John again gives us two ways of God's presence in the world: the light and the life. He is the light. He is the life. And this life and light are always there for us to see. However, there is a continuous battle to quench that light. The light that Jesus has brought, the light that is Jesus. But the joy of it is that all those who have recognized that light live in the light. All those who accept him express that life, express in themselves the life that God brings, that Jesus Christ gives us. To those who receive him, he has given the privilege, the grace to become children of God, to become like his Son. I don't know what this feast stands for you, but it is an act of self-giving. God giving himself to us. It is an invitation as well for us to give ourselves for the good of others, for the salvation of others. Let the mystery we celebrate not be lost in the accidentals. Let it not be crowded in the visitations, in the visits, in the preparation, in the decoration, in the celebration itself. Of course, the liturgy shows us everything about this day. The crib is there to remind us of the humility of this child that is born in poverty. It is also an invitation to look at those that are languishing in poverty, to lift them up, to reach out to them. It is invitation as well to pray for those who are suffering, especially those in the Middle East, the land where Jesus was born, where he lived and grew. For us to make for peace, for the world peace. He is called the Prince of Peace, yet the world knows no peace. But we are agents of that peace, and we must begin to create and make peace wherever we are. In our hearts, in our homes, by recognizing Jesus, inviting him, acknowledging him, and accepting him in our lives. And of course, proclaiming him to others. St. John of the Cross tells us, where there is no love, sow love and you will reap love. You can as well say that of peace. Where there is no peace, bring peace, sow peace, and you reap the fruit of peace. It is not easy, especially in our world that is becoming more anti-Christ and anti-religion. But of course, we are human beings. And we can bring that light. Walk against all the different shades of darkness, trying to quench that light and to destroy the life that God has given us. This is your vocation today. As you go about celebrating Christmas, bringing him to people, making him known, remember you are the light, sharing in the light of Christ. To dispel the darkness in people's lives, the gloom of hopelessness, and strive sincerely to make that light to burn brightly wherever you are. You are the Christ that must be incarnated in the presence of others, in your environment, in the society where you find yourself. Let us remember, the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, that we may become like God, that we may be redeemed, and that we may become the Christ that is brought to others. Merry Christmas.